Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the second hour of the Exceptional Conservative Show, live from the nation's capital. We are not ashamed of the good news conservatism, for it is the power of liberation, first to the Republican, and then, ladies and gentlemen, to the tyrants out there, and you will know them by the fruit that they bear. Tonight we have with us a very special guest, a man who has served this country in the U.S. military and in the White House. Greg Raths served in the U.S. States Marine Corps, retiring as a colonel in 2004. He also served as Chief of Staff for the White House Military Office from 1996 to 1999, and as a liaison between the Pentagon and the White House. He's earned his associate's degree in political science from Saddleback College, a bachelor's degree in business from Arizona State University, and a bachelor's degree in political science and history from California State University of Fullerton. He also has a master's degree in national resource strategy from the National Defense University. He's been a councilman for the city of Mission Viejo in 2014 and has served as mayor. We want to introduce to some and present to others the Honorable Colonel Greg Raths from Mission Viejo. Good evening, sir. It's a tremendous honor and pleasure to have you on the air with us tonight.
Good evening. Good to be here. Love your show.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure having you here. First and foremost, my bouncer-in-chief, Mary Brockman, would not allow me to go on unless I said this to you. Thank God for you and your service to our country in the U.S. Marine Corps. Thank you so much.
Well, it's my honor. My father was a World War II bomber pilot over in Europe. He inspired me. He was my hero. And when I was in college, I joined the Marine Corps officer program to be a jet fighter pilot, which I ended up serving for 30 years, 3 combat operations. So it's
Wow.
It runs in the family. My son is a Marine major who also flies F-18 Hornets.
Well, awesome. Listen, tonight, the mayor, probably the mayor made the phone call to the governor of Pennsylvania, Tom Wolf, and requested that the Pennsylvania National Guard be called in Philadelphia because of the rioting that's taking place there as a result of a criminal who refused to drop his weapon and was killed by police. I gotta ask you here, sir, do you feel, even in your city, the seemingly disdain for law and order, and as well a sense of a feeling that the system of justice does not work evenly across the board?
I just don't see how, when there's an incident like you just described in Philadelphia, where the quote unquote tolerant left just goes out of control and feel they need to just riot and pillage our communities. I don't see it here in the district I live. I live in Southern California in Orange County. I've sat on the city council for 6 years. I was mayor last year, as you mentioned. We just beefed up our law enforcement by 1 extra officer, mainly to go through our schools, ensure that our children are safe. I am a law and order type of guy. I'm a congressional candidate that believes that we must obey the laws that are written by our legislators. And if you do have a problem, there is the judicial system that handles that. So you just can't willy-nilly go out and start smashing things up when there's something that you do not agree with, i.e. what's going on right now. It's very, very sad. But go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, there are some that would say to you that you don't understand that the criminal justice system is against certain minorities, and on top of that, that police wake up every single morning with the intent to harass and harangue the black and the brown community. What say you to that type of discourse?
Well, being a white man, obviously, I have not experienced what you just described because of I'm Caucasian, but I did grow up in Phoenix, Arizona, in a
Yes.
traditionally Hispanic neighborhood with many of my friends. And I grew up in the 60s when there was a lot of racial divide. I grew up during the civil rights with the Martin Luther King era. I grew up when Kennedy was assassinated and his brother was assassinated. Martin Luther King was assassinated. So I grew up in some very, very difficult times. And I'm starting to see it again now in our communities. I thought we had worked most of this problem out.
Yes.
My son's best friend is a Orange County deputy sheriff. They get good training. They ensure that there's no animosity to another. But obviously, there's a few out there still that bring down the whole bunch, and it's unfortunate, as we saw in Minneapolis with the one officer holding his knee on the black man's neck there for so long that he ended up passing away. So I can understand uh, with the minority community, the black and brown community, that there is a bias, and I can sit and talk with them. But as far as just rioting and looting does not solve the problem, it only makes it worse. So we need to continue. I was in the Marine for 30 years, from
Yes.
75 to 2005. We went through the issue with minorities in the military. We're very diverse. We go to war together. We don't care what color skin is. The guy next to you who's shooting, and the guy next to you who's dropping bombs or whatever. So we worked it out in the military, and then the females came in. They wanted to be pilots. They want to go to combat. We worked through that. So our nation's got to continue to work through these problems. And unfortunately, with COVID, when COVID happened,
Yes.
our country, right before COVID, our country was almost at full employment. Everyone's working, and this wasn't the issue that starting to come up now. So with COVID and more people at home, there's issues at home with alcoholism and other issues, and people are not working, and you're starting to see this starting to percolate to the top. So we need to understand the environment the environment we are in, and then go forward with and trying to find solutions to it.
Final question in this regard. Do you find it disingenuous that those on the left, with their reactionary stances, didn't support Senator Tim Scott's attempt to bring about a crime bill, which should have been a nonpartisan crime bill, and it was that at its intent, but they don't seem to want a solution. I guess I'm moving to it. It's kind of like, we got a problem, but I don't want a solution. I want to spend my time rioting and looting to complain about it. Am I a bit hyperbolic here at all?
No, I think you're right on. I believe these riots are instigated by something deeper than what we see. I think there's some big money behind this. They're organized. They're not spur of the moment. They're just kind of waiting for a spark, and then they send in the forces, and it's well funded by these extreme groups that are, I think, anti-government, anti-Trump, anti anything to just cause discord in our country. So I don't believe it's what it used to be when people were like Martin Luther King. There was a
Yeah.
problem, and he worked through it, and he did peaceful protests, and he got beat up pretty bad, and you saw the water cannons and the German shepherds in those days was terrible. But he worked through it and worked through it and worked through it, and then we got civil rights through Johnson, and then through the Nixon administration. But this is just something I've never seen before, and I'm 67. I have not seen it where these is just organized crime going into whenever there's a spark. And it's, I don't believe it's anything Martin Luther King would be proud of.
No, not at all. Your Honor, you have served at various levels of governance in our country as well as outside in private industry and in the military. And the big question for many of us when we listen to uh, the former Vice President Joe Biden, who is quoted as leading the polls, which is supposed to incite us to believe that he's going to be president, that he supports locking down America one more time. And in addition to that, he would like to eliminate the oil industry. I want, if you could, speak to those particular points. Exactly what does a lockdown do, especially to a state like California?
It can't happen. We cannot lock down. I can understand back in March when this virus first came to our shores and we didn't know much about it. We've learned over the months a lot. 99.99% of the people that do get the virus recover. And I don't see locking down a country when 99% of the people recover from this. I can understand if half the people that get it die. Obviously, it's a virus that we've learned more and more about. So I'm not. We need to get on with our lives. We need to open our schools. We need to just open our industries and our businesses and get on with our lives. We learn how to handle this. They have some great therapeutics. If you do get the virus, there's some great remedies to overcome it. As you see, our president and his son and his wife, they're all doing fine. Obviously, if you're older and you have some underlying conditions, you want to make sure you kind of stay secluded. And most of those people are on some type of fixed income through Social Security or some type of pension system. But we can't just lock this country down anymore. It needs to thrive. We need to get out. We need to be among people. And that's just the way we are. We've lived with the flu. We live with cancer. We live with diabetes. We live with all these other diseases. We can live with this. And let's move forward with our lives and get on with things.
But hasn't Governor Newsom done a wonderful job with California, saving millions of lives by locking down? You can't even breathe inside of a church, according to the edicts of Governor Newsom. So hasn't that helped?
I know you're being sarcastic. This state, I appreciate what the president did. He let the governors handle each of their state, but this state is so large. It's not like Delaware or Connecticut. It's huge. And our governor should delegate down to the county levels, to the city levels on how we handle businesses. What happens in Sacramento or San Francisco or San Diego does not happen in Orange County. As of tonight, there's like 4 people in the hospitals in intensive care with this virus out of 3.3 million people. So it just doesn't make sense. I think it's all political because it just does not make sense why this governor, and I believe he's just betting on the come that Biden will win and he will bail out California with the big stimulus package. And that's what he's waiting on. And I just don't see it happen. I do see the president getting reelected. And now Newsom's going to be in a hell of a jam. And he also has a proposition, which is Proposition 15 here on the ballot, to increase taxes on businesses, which in turn will just pass it on to the consumers. So, and he's looking for 11, $12 billion from that. So this governor is so out of touch. He is more of a dictator now than a governor. He's dictating to us in a very in Orange County and to my city where there's very few cases, and he's treating us as if we're up in a very like LA where there may be some more problems than down here in Orange County.
Exactly. Greg Raths is running for Congress in the 45th congressional district of California. His is a winnable race, a very winnable race that could flip a blue house seat red, and we do need that here in Washington D.C. I got to ask you here. Donald Trump was asking for more than 2.2 million. I'm sorry, $1 trillion in terms of a stimulus. Would you have been supportive of a stimulus at $2.2 trillion if it included, and he didn't want it at all? So I'm just prefacing that he didn't want a bailout of the big cities and states. But would you have wanted a bailout of California to be included in a stimulus bill that came out of Washington?
Absolutely not. I don't think the federal government should be involved in unemployment. I ran a company. I was president of a company. I owned a company. It's a state's responsibility. We pay into an unemployment account every month for our employees to the state. It's a state responsibility. It has nothing to do with the federal government. And
Yeah.
the federal government doesn't have any money. It's not like they're sitting on tons and tons of money. If they're going to put together a stimulus, I do support helping small businesses stay on their feet until we figure out this pandemic. But as far as bailing out states like California that have these huge pensions for state workers, that basically is about 100% of their regular wage. I just don't see it. They've mismanaged the state. You see it in Illinois. You see it in New York, where they mismanaged these states, and now they're begging the federal government to bail them out with money they don't have. And they don't even sell bonds anymore. They basically they don't even print money. They just move numbers from the Fed to the Treasury. And if you keep doing this, if you just a student of history, sooner or later the dollar is going to be worthless, and you just can't pour trillions of dollars into an economy and expect the dollar to maintain its value. I'm not supportive of that. Now, in my city last year when I was mayor, we had a $6 million budget surplus. In the years before, we have a pot of about $30 million. So this year, when we're not bringing in the tax revenue, we're able to take from that surplus. We're not borrowing money. We use the money that we put in a surplus. And in the federal government, it's just so huge and so out of hand that as a congressman, I'm a big fiscal hawk. I'm going to go there and smack some people around to get this budget under control because it's just totally crazy.
It,
I
do
mean,
you find it offensive that we haven't had a real budget in almost a decade? Do you
yeah,
find that
yeah.
offensive at all?
I think it's longer than that. There's
Yeah.
like I believe it's 12 or 13 spending bills for each of the different cabinets. You're supposed to work on it all year in Congress. You're going to authorize the bill. You're going to appropriate the money. You pass it before September 30th, which is the end of the fiscal year,
Mhm.
and then the money goes to each of the cabinets, but it never gets done. So what happens? They do this continuing resolution, and then finally, in the dark of night on Christmas Eve or something, they pass this huge, ominous $3 trillion bill with all this pork piled on. And then, as people wake up on New Year's Eve, the thing's passed, but it's already too late. So it's Congress' responsibility, and I'm just so disappointed in both parties. I mean,
Exactly.
the Republicans are supposed to be these fiscal hawks, and they've turned out just as bad as the Democrats. So I'm going to go there. I'm not some 35-year-old brand new congressman. I'm 67. I'm going to show up and knock some sense into these guys and do what I can. They say, well, you're only one out of 435 congressmen. Well, on the left, you got a lady named AOC. Look what she's done. She put her mark on what's going on. Although I don't believe in anything she does, but I'm sure going to do my best to get this federal government under control.
Exactly. National security is a huge issue tonight. There have been recommendations from the right that FBI Director Christopher Wray be fired. Not wait until after Election Day, but that Donald Trump should fire him as a result of the Hunter Biden tape fiasco. I want to ask you, are you completely satisfied with America's national security, and what would it look like after you went to Congress?
No, it's still very scary with the deep state. And as you mentioned in my bio, I did work 3 years at the White House I ran the White House military office. We provide military support to the commander in chief, vice president, senior cabinet members.
Yes.
Air Force One is helicopters, his medical team, his communication team. Camp David's run by the Navy, so I know it. And I did find out when I'm there, there is this deep state, these bureaucrats that work there forever, and presidents come and go, cabinet members come and go, and they kind of run the show. And they don't like it when a disruptor comes into office like Donald Trump. So I'm very disappointed in the FBI, how they handled the whole issue of Hillary Clinton and her tapes, how he handled the whole issue with President Trump. And I'm very disappointed in this current FBI director. And I don't think in the next 6 days he's going to be fired. But if Trump wins, he'll be fired and also the Secretary of Defense, SB, will be fired, and he'll bring in all new people. But it took him a while. He was spied upon. He was run through this whole Mueller investigation, this whole Ukraine impeachment. My God, this guy's been through so much. God bless him. If he wins re-election, now he's got 4 years of experience. He knows how corrupt the deep state is. He knows how corrupt a lot of senators and congressmen are. And I think he's going to have a magnificent second term.
A lot of the left is angry tonight because Merrick Garland wasn't being sworn in by Clarence Thomas. Amy Coney Barrett was sworn in last night by Clarence Thomas, which I thought was an amazing sight. One of the most conservative, strict constructionists being sworn in by the most strict constructionist on the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas. I got to ask you here your thoughts of your constituency and their thoughts on the entire right of the president to nominate and see through the swearing in of Amy Coney Barrett.
Well, that's his constitutional duty. We lost a Supreme Court justice. She passed away. Yes, it was close to election, but his job as president is to nominate and appoint an associate justice. And he did. He brought up Amy Coney Barrett. And then it was the Senate's responsibility to vet her, to have hearings. And it's not that they don't have to have hearings, but they had hearings for it. And then they voted out of committee. They voted her to the floor, and the floor voted on her last night, and she was sworn in. That's just in the Constitution. There's nothing that was done wrong as far as the other gentleman who was not brought up. It was nominated by then President Obama, and the Senate happened to be run by Republicans, and they just waited it out. I can see why the Democrats are probably a little peeved over it, but welcome to politics and welcome to Washington, D.C. So I think Amy's going to do an amazing job. Some people say Garrett got a bad deal, but welcome to Washington politics. If they want to change things, they got to win the Senate, and they got to win they have to win the presidency.
I think it was Barack Hussein Obama who put it this way: winning has consequences. I think it was him. I don't know. Maybe
we need an election.
So I want to ask you tonight, the Second Amendment. Joe Biden, whether he was conscious or not, spoke with Anderson Cooper on CNN during an interview and made it very abundantly clear that one of the first things that he would do is issue an executive order against the Second Amendment. I want to ask you, for the people who are listening to you in Mississippi right now and Louisiana and Maine and other places around the country, will you fight Joe Biden every inch of the way on the Second Amendment?
Well, again, absolutely. We're talking about the Constitution. The Constitution says we have the right to bear arms. It's plain as day. We can bear arms. And And if those people, some of us want to go out and buy a firearm and protect ourselves, or if we want to buy a long rifle for hunting or for whatever, or a shotgun, we have that right. It's in our Constitution, and we should not have that right taken away. Just like the First Amendment, freedom of speech, we should not have that right to take away. And I saw this in my campaign. My Democratic opponent, she can go on YouTube and advertise and advertise, but they won't take my advertisements, and it's very, very discouraging that they won't, because they're so slanted to the left, and it may help her campaign and hurt mine. But I thought, you have the money, it's a capitalist system, I want to advertise, and they say no. So I would work with with the Congress to get these social medias either under control. If you're going to have some type of regulation, they need to be even on both sides. But as far as the Second Amendment, we have the right to bear arms.
So you think Facebook and YouTube and Twitter should be subject to the forgive me, the clause 230 in the legislative act, that they should be looked upon as publishers and not just social media. Am I correct?
Yeah, that 230, I have looked into that. I know a little bit about it, that they are able to bypass some regulations if they maintain some type of a balance, and I just don't see it happening. Like I said, YouTube won't even play any of my advertising, and Facebook is very critical on what I post, and Twitter is the worst. I mean, first of all, these people on Twitter are just vicious and mean, and this so-called tolerant left, they're not tolerant. They go after my family, they go after my children, they go after just anything. I don't know. The social media needs to really be reined in some way. I can't figure it out right now.
Yeah, I think 230 would do that. If you make them publishers,
Yeah.
that would cut a lot of that crap out, in my opinion. That's just my wording. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Raths with us tonight. He's running in the 45th Congressional District. This is a flippable district. It really is. And he needs your support along the way. And I want to ask this final question to you. You've served in the military at the highest levels of the White House, national security. Do you trust Joe Biden at all as commander in chief?
No, I do not. I did prior to, I wouldn't say trust, but prior to all this charisma with his son, and you saw what's going on with his brother, this pay to play going on in China. We saw it happen in Ukraine, and now we saw it in Russia. I do not trust this man to run our country. I believe he's been bought and paid for. He is not ethical as far as I'm concerned. One thing about President Trump is he can't be bought. He obviously he's self-funded. Is not self-funded, but he's well off. He doesn't need to take money from these big companies, and Biden does. And I just think if Joe Biden gets in there and Kamala Harris, we're in for a lot of trouble, and we're going to be in a battle for the next 4 years. But I really, really hope we pull this presidential race out. I feel I can win my race here in Orange County. This has been traditionally a Republican seat. It's been Republican forever since until 2018, when ballot harvesting was passed by the Assembly and the legislature here in California, where people could go into rest homes and pick up ballots and fill them out for people that probably don't even know what they're filling out. And the congressman who lost in 2018, the congresswoman, she was up by 12,000 votes till they brought in about 100,000 harvested ballots, and she ended up losing by 12,000. So there's a lot of corruption in our state here in California, but we feel that because of COVID, maybe this ballot harvesting was curtailed a little bit. The Democrats cannot get into these senior facilities, so we feel pretty comfortable that we can win this seat. And I'm predicting we win by 5 or 6 points.
I believe that you will. And in finality here, regarding your military or our military, because you've served in the U.S. Marine Corps, which is probably one of the most disciplined branches of military
Correct.
service in the world. Does character matter in terms of the person that the grunts look to in terms of leadership? Does that matter at all?
Absolutely. A good friend of mine's a congressman out of Michigan. Um, he is a retired three-star general. I was his chief of staff when he was actually a wing commander. I was his chief of staff. And he's been a mentor of mine. And he tells me there's a lot of issues in Washington in the House with some of the characters, some of these congressmen and women. And in coming through the ranks of the military, especially the Marine Corps, where discipline is strong and ethics is strong, that I'm going to be challenged. I admit I'm going to be challenged in Washington on, hey, if you vote on this, we'll take you here. But it's not like I'm going there for 30 years. I'd like to do a few terms and do my best and do my best to clean up Washington. But character matters. If you grow up in the Marine Corps, I was an Eagle Scout. I was in
Wow.
high school politics, 3 college degrees. I understand what's going on. No one can buy me. No one can persuade me to do something against my will for money or favors. And I look forward to winning this seat here next week and moving to Washington and bring some character and integrity to the halls of Congress.
How can people support you at this point? A lot of people would say, well, you don't need any support at all. You're in Orange County. That's next to Silicon Valley. You all print money for the Treasury. You don't need any help. What kind of support do you need, sir, for the final race?
Well, actually, the president was here last week, and there's a lot of money in Orange County. Like you said, he raised $13 million, but there's 5 seats in the district. We lost all 5 in 2018. We're trying to get at least 3 or 4 back. And a lot of the Orange County money's gone to a couple of the campaigns, so I could always use some more to get one last mailer out. One mailer to 400,000 voters is $45,000. So you go to Greg Rath, GREGRATHS.com if you'd like to make a contribution. As far as phone calling and knocking on doors, we have that covered. We have the volunteers out there every day and making phone calls and knocking on doors. So we're comfortable there, but always a few extra dollars will help out.
There you go. Greg Raths, we look forward to interviewing you as Congressman Greg Raths in January. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We look forward to your great success and for the success of the 45th Congressional District turning red for the final time. Stay red, California, stay red. God bless you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on and your staff tracking me down.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm telling you, that's the man. I put together tonight for you 2 great men of character. One who has served in the U.S. military for the Marine Corps, the other who served in the U.S. Navy. Both of them family men, both of them men of character, both who understand that is smash mouth politics when you come to Washington. It ain't pretty, but it works. They're not going to spend a whole lot of time at the Kennedy Center smoozing and boozing. And they really believe in God and country. Make it plain, ladies and gentlemen, not just with your vote. Your vote is great, but with your prayers and with your profits. Make your way towards supporting Greg Raths and as well Brian Flowers down in Mississippi. Listen, we'll be back with more tonight from Philadelphia as we're reporting out of Washington, D.C. on the planned, yes, I'm going to tell you, like right now, ladies and gentlemen, the planned rioting that's taking place in Philadelphia tonight. Tom Wolfe has brought in the Philadelphia National Guard. We will bring you more and more details as we persist. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen.